we all know that the world that we live in, the enterprise landscape is kind of changing and evolving, and a change is something that is kind of constant and real. And a lot of factors contributed to where we are today, right? I mean, if you look at the data sprawl, the ubiquitous nature of mobiles, the pandemic accelerated digitization, a lot of things resulted in more devices, platforms, more applications. And where do you host those applications also have kind of completely changed. You have more networks and more services. Not only that, we also have more attacks these days because of the nature of devices that people used to connect to, and how do they kind of gain access to those enterprise applications. And again, this is purely from a landscape standpoint, but if you really look at it, what this resulted in, like, for the network security admins or the security admins, is they really don't know how data is being utilized by the users, whether there are any DLP policies that they need to write. They really don't know the complete visibility into their network, which devices people use to connect to, and which applications people typically try to connect to through their VPN technologies or any technologies that they use to connect to the corporate. They are really overwhelmed with multitude of point technologies. We have so many technologies at play here, and that creates a big challenge in terms of managing all those various different solutions that they do have. And this, not only from an admin's perspective, this kind of creates a huge challenge and barriers in terms of adopting new technologies, but also from a user's perspective, the user experience are inconsistent. A user might probably have to have multiple applications installed on their endpoints prior they kind of really gain access to those corporate resources. So this is all creating inconsistencies and not so real, I would probably say, the experience that they would expect from an enterprise application while they're accessing that. So what this really paved way for is a simple technology which you all of might have heard. It's called zero trust, predominantly in the space of secure access, where the conventional way of access no longer kind of gives you the level of security as well as the experience that user expects from while they're accessing corporate applications. So zero trust is the new security model. You would have heard about it from so many other conferences, so many other customers using it and whatnot. But it is built on fundamentally taking away the trust, or probably say the implicit trust that was put on many of the networking and security products, while they kind of enable you to give access to those applications. So zero trust is the new security model that is built on never trust, always verify kind of a concept. It also breaks down your networks into smaller segments. So even in a case of an attack, your attack surface drastically goes down from being able to access anything in your network to only to something that is there applicable for that specific segment. And also, conditional identity and access management is an integral part of zero trust, and you really need to know who's accessing that data. So zero trust is a model that is purely built on your user data, access, device, and applications. So if you kind of drill down a little bit and understand what are the various different constituents that frame the zero trust model, is one, obviously, even what we support in our zero trust, the first and foremost step is to identify who is accessing the application and from which device. So identifying the device becomes a very critical component here. So that's why the first step for us in the concept of zero trust is enrolling a device. And then we also have to make sure that we validate the user. MFA is another critical component that makes a bigger key role in terms of identifying the user and making sure that the right user is kind of gaining access to the right resources. And the important aspect is obviously securing your network and the data. And you have to give access to those specific applications that the user is entitled to, which is kind of a completely a shift in a model with where VPNs have been built to where we are with respect to ZTNA. VPNs typically enable you to give access to your entire network or a subnet in your network, whereas ZTNA, the fundamental core access principle, is all about giving access to those specific applications that the user is entitled to. And obviously, data loss is a key. We should never let a malicious user or a malicious device kind of gain access to our data. And not only about validating the user, identifying the data loss, as well as the device and whatnot, We have to constantly monitor your user's behavior, network, as well as device to be able to identify, are there any anomalies that I detect? And if I do so, what are those preventive actions that I am taking care? And that has to be constant and continuous. It is not as if like a fire and forget policy that predominantly the previous solutions do have. And any threats that you detect, you have to immediately remediate as well. These are the key 7 steps. If you enable in your organization, then you are marching towards the new zero trust model, which enables you again to fight against those threat actors and any other data loss kind of issues. So, as I already mentioned, it is built on the principle of never trust, always verify, and continuous adaptive enforcement is key to kind of making sure that your zero trust policies are built in a way that you're only giving access, as well as you can take out the access the moment you see where any anomaly happening in your network. So, again, uh, the points are simple, right? We know that we have a technology that we all need to adopt to, but in many of the organizations and customers that we talk to as well, a lot of them actually still use VPN today. And because of the nature of VPN, the way that it kind of gives access to those all applications for them, and secure access being that technology, when there is any problem in terms of giving access to your users, it is a direct impact on their productivity. So you have to kind of really balance productivity loss, completely kind of giving access to those all network resources versus giving them access to only the certain applications that they're entitled to. So there are a lot of different vendors out there in ZTNA. Many of them have come from various different vantages point around. Like a lot of them had swig kind of a component, and then they brought in zero trust access. Many of them had CASB, and then they brought in swig. But I would strongly believe in that zero trust access is a coexistence as well as a technology that enhances your VPN. And we kind of, the VPN vendor out there in the market historically has been the dominant vendor out there in the market. With We understand our customers really well. We also know the access needs of our customers. So layering in security on top of access is what we built in when we built what we brought in when we built in zero trust access. And we also understand the current access landscape much better than anybody else. So one thing that I really wanted to say, the end goal is all clear, right? We need to reduce the attack surface. We only need to have to give access to those specific applications that the user is entitled to. But how do you really get there?
And I want to chime in on that one because it all sounds great. It's nice. It's cool. And we know how to get there. We know these core principles. But like Hammond said, I'm doing sales engineering, talking to a hell lot of customers, and they all love the concept of zero trust. Still, they use a hell lot of VPN. Sorry, part of my French, by the way. Sorry for that. There are some challenges in adopting such an zero trust strategy, actually, which customers are facing literally. There can be a piecemeal approach. Oh, let's do this business unit. Oh, just this application is zero trust. When I'm at the office, oh, we're secured, which is kind of strange because you're still in a building, either outside or inside. Zero trust is always. That is not like, it's from 9 to 5. It's not really working on that. A all-in-one product. If you have these 7 things, these are distinct product sets. Yes, you can combine things, but you leverage several systems to cross-check and cross-validate what you're about to see and make sure who is who and what is what. In some cases, there are applications that are not ready to go zero trust, making it full cloud. They have no modern way of logging in. Maybe still the classic database, maybe still something on-premise. They cannot go zero trust all of a sudden. Maybe you have an IP telephony system. That is not from user to your data center, but from your data center to your user. Zero trust ground up was never designed to do these kind of things. So customers are struggling on adopting zero trust on these things. If you have 20,000 laptops and you need to enroll them to a new solution, that's a nice migration. Yes, we have nice tooling for deploying software and migrating people. But still, it's an undertaking a company you need to go through. It's challenging. And some are just not ready yet. They're not mature enough that they know which applications they have, which they want to put in a zero trust model.
Absolutely. I mean, you're spot on, Stephen. And as you just see here, right? I mean, like taking a step back, really identifying what do we really need to do to make sure that we enable our customers as well as our users on this journey towards zero trust. I mean, again, what we strongly believe in, having seen the market evolve, and what we really know by talking to our customers is zero trust is not an option. I mean, is not a technology where you can rip and replace your VPN, right? Zero trust is a technology. It's a journey towards more secure and more app access oriented access models. So this is not a like one day rip and replace option. This is kind of really going to be a journey. As you see here, right? I mean, if you really take a step back, right now your users are across across everywhere. Like we all know that like pre-pandemic everybody were kind of coming into office, and post-pandemic, I mean during pandemic everybody were working remote, right? The need of remote access, I would probably say the number of users who are accessing the technology to be able to connect really quadrupled during pandemic. And at the same point in time, post-pandemic, there were like a lot of debate around, do we need to bring employees back to office, or are there any other ways of like kind of really working, right? Where did we really settle it? We really settled it right now something called hybrid work, where employees do come into office probably 2 days or 3 days in a week, but rest of the week they'll continue working from their home offices. So where are we really settling in when the technology transitions, when the technology evolves, is always about sticking to your older technology while you migrate onto newer technology, is always something around hybrid work. And across all the spaces that you see, right? You see the network side of the story also. We all know that we have we connect to our devices, and what we typically get is an IPv4 address. And this IPv4 address was actually about to be replaced by IPv6 probably back in 2005 and 2006, right? Like we're still in 2024, and there are many systems still use IPv4 only IP address schemes, right? So it is again, we really have to understand when we move away from one technology to the other technology, we need those technologies that enables you seamlessly transition from one technology to the other technology. So where we really ended up in IPv4 and IPv6, right? The technologies that really help them is all dual stack. So you have your V4, and at the same time, you can slowly start migrating applications to IPv6, right? Because this transition is not on just one component of your solution. It has to happen on your devices. It has to happen on your network. It also has to happen on your applications. So this transitions to happen unless we have a seamless migration option. Nothing is going to be a reality anytime soon. The same thing happens with applications also, right? Back in 2010s and 2000 pre 2015s, everybody was talking about, oh, cloud is the new buzzword. Oh, we are all migrating all my applications to cloud. Back in 2024 today, do we really see every application that people have built over 20 years of whatever the legacy that they have in terms of building enterprise applications? Do you think that all of them have been migrated to cloud? The answer is no. So what we right now have, and the reality today, is hybrid IT. And you can consider even from a devices point of view also, the same logic really works, right? I mean, I can take a step back, and probably if you look at the evolution of car market, like when the EVs came into the market, everybody said, okay, this is going to take the market, take away all your gas vehicles and whatnot, right? If you really see again, this market also has been there for the past 10 to 15 years. EVs only get EVs only have 6% of overall vehicle share is just for EVs, right? What really has a better share is all your hybrid vehicles. Hybrid vehicles has 10% of overall market share, that whatever we have in our current vehicle market, right? So across the world, across all these various different aspects of the puzzle, hybrid is the go forward strategy, and coexistence and seamless migration. If you're not enabling your users and customers to be able to have that journey towards ZTNA in a seamless way, this technology is not going to be adopted by any customer. So that's exactly what we really wanted to convey. Businesses know that they need zero trust, but what they really don't know is, how do I get there? What are my avenues to get into enabling my users access those applications in a zero trust model?
And actually, it's good to know I'm part of the 10%. I just got myself a new hybrid car. So I now add up to the 10%. That's a good thing. I'm not ready yet for EV. In the Netherlands, you travel a lot by car. In America, you do a lot by plane, I found out. I travel a hell lot by car. EV was for me better than, or hybrid is better than EV. Otherwise, I would just strand halfway and then wait for an hour to charge. So I need EV, but I'm not sure how to get there. That's literally in the EV market as well.
Exactly. And what is our approach towards solving this problem, right? Again, we are an incumbent VPN vendor across so many critical security, financial vectors, federal governments, and whatnot, right? So we understand their pain points. So how do we really enable, right? Just one small, I would probably say, a primer here. The VPN is always about connecting to a single like server, and then you kind of get access to all the applications that are hosted across multiple location. Whereas zero trust is about directly enabling users to connect to those sites and where those applications are hosted. So networks are completely segmented here, and as well as like users directly gain access to those applications without kind of backhauling their traffic or rather than like routing them to your corporate headquarters and from there using your backend channels connecting to your branch office, right? That is not the model here. Just a primer before we get into the overall migration aspects here. So how do we really solve the problem of this migration, as well as how do we really coexist in a VPN ecosystem? Is so one thing that we all know. Again, we do have like uh, I'm sure that you also might have a VPN in your corporate. The first thing that that we do is we need to make sure that your VPNs are also have to be made secure, because they have to coexist in your ZTNA environment for probably for next 10 years or so. So the first thing that we do with our customers is to let them upgrade their stack on the VPN to the modern Ivanti security appliances. And the second thing that we do is we completely provide visibility into all the applications that the users access through VPN. So this is something that no other vendor in the market offers today. When you connect through a VPN, when you access through a tunnel, vendors generally doesn't know what applications that users use. But what we kind of really provide as a step towards ZTNA is to give them that complete visibility into all the applications that the users access. Along with that, we give you a simple, easy to migrate on a per application basis, a wizard where you can select the application that you would want to migrate. That's what we'll show in the rest of the slides as well. And you can easily migrate from VPN to ZTNA on a per application basis. While we do all these things, from a licensing perspective, this is all baked in one single seat for our customers. So they don't have to buy multiple solutions from us. All they can have to buy is this unified access license from us. And we baked everything in that is required for us, for an end user, for a customer to be able to seamlessly migrate from VPN to ZTNA. And it's not just about the the final destination, right? At every step we actually show a concrete value, as I just mentioned. Just by hooking on the neurons controller that we have to your VPN gateways, you get complete visibility of what users access through VPN. So that itself is a concrete step in terms of identifying what applications users use. So now you see here, uh, through our client, VPN people typically access all their on-prem applications through a VPN gateway. This is the current model. How do we really migrate? So all they have to do is connect their VPN gateways to the controller. That is a simple two-step process. Again, they just have to give the location of the gateway as well as the key that gets generated when you create a gateway on the controller. So the moment they do that, the gateways gets connected to the controller and they start sharing all the log related data as well as the event logs, admin logs, and on everything to the controller. And you can start to manage your VPN gateways completely from the controller in terms of configurations, in terms of managing those appliances, the lifecycle management of the gateways, the upgrades, downgrades. You want to push a new package, anything and everything that whatever you typically do on an individual gateway, now you get to do everything on the controller. So you did that. Okay, what next? As I just mentioned, this is our visibility dashboard. And you can see here the way we have correlated the data as well. We know which user is connecting to your corporate and through which device they're connecting. And we also know through which network they're coming in. And finally, what application that they're accessing. So it is not only about showing you the data, we make sure that we get data inputs from all those various different sources, like your client, your gateways, your VPN gateways, your ZTNA gateways, and we give you that comprehensive view around how users are accessing applications. And you can see the detailed view here, the block down under. It has all the details, the application details, the user detail, the location of the user, as well as, again, uh, these days being everybody working from remote, you really need to know from which location that that they're connecting from, and the device type, and to which gateway that they're connecting. So, okay, we provide, I mean, visibility is one aspect of the puzzle. Now, how do you really migrate to ZTNA? As you see here, we do have this migrate to ZTNA policy creation wizard, which, again, from a context perspective, when the VPN gateways are connected to the neurons, they are in the context of VPN connect secure service within the neurons. Post that, we immediately select that application and we take them to the neurons for ZTNA controller. And you see here, everything in the context of ZTNA is per application. So when you create a policy also, the first important construct of the zero trust policy is all about the application. We take the application right at the center of your policy, and we make sure that we provide you that granular access policy configuration where you can write at a per application level what is my device policy and to which user I'm giving this application access to, and what is those behavioral patterns that I need to be looking at before I kind of allow those users to kind of connect and constantly monitor them as well. So while you as an admin is doing all this migration in the backend at a per application level, for an end user, it is as simple as possible. He'll continue to access all those applications because the client that we use to even connect to both VPN and ZTNA is all the same Ivanti secure access client, which is again deployed across 20 million endpoints as we speak today. So all our existing customers doesn't have to deploy another agent for them to be able to migrate to ZTNA. So it is all within the same endpoint that the user is enabled to connect, and he'll continue to access the same applications as he was doing earlier. But the when the admin migrates that application, now what we do is we switch on the client dynamically. Like earlier, when that specific application users was accessing, the traffic was actually routed through your VPN gateway. But the moment the policies gets created for the application, we immediately switch the traffic to go through your ZTNA gateway. Everything happens behind the scenes, and users doesn't really need to know about what's going on when you as an admin are migrating those applications. And that's what you can see here. The moment you connected your gateways, we made sure is we started doing traffic steering right there at the endpoint, so there's no backhauling or traffic tramponing happening. So now it appropriately chooses which gateway that the traffic should be routed through based on the application. If you have your, for example, you migrated your SharePoint application from a VPN to ZTNA gateway, immediately the traffic gets rerouted through the ZTNA gateway to that specific data center or your office, again, branch office. Then they'll be able to access that application. Along with that, as you can see here, you can include CASB and SWIG capabilities as well into the solution, and we appropriately route that traffic also to CASB and SWIG. So you can see here, we do have a right mix of SDP and POP architecture, where for your private applications, we have a clear segregation of control plane and data plane, and we only route the data directly to your location where you have deployed your gateways, whereas our controller only gets to see the control traffic. So the data never comes to our controller. Whereas in the context of CASB and SWIG, the data gets routed to the right components in the solution. That way, you will be able to get that experience that the users really want, right? So when they're accessing probably Facebook or YouTube, when they're accessing your SaaS applications, there is no necessity for you to route the traffic through your corporate. Again, If your security policy demands and dictates that, you can change the policy where you can route everything to your corporate and probably run a security stack there. But if your focus is more on, I don't care, I mean, I really want to give that optimal application access experience, but still I need to make sure that DLP, or I need to, all those EDRM policies are baked in for your SaaS apps as well as your internet apps. That is also kind of possible with the solution.
And
Want
the
to
other
add
thing
anything?
on to explain because there are some acronyms, and yesterday we had a session where I did some kind of an acronym bingo because we have a lot of 3-letter and 4-letter acronyms. Secure Web Gateway is actually the classical proxy, which you know from 2005 and onwards. So that's everybody has it. And before we had the castle and the moat. That was all what we were doing. That was our perimeter, our office. We connected to that thing, and from that onwards, we started to do everything. The components you see here for ZTNA, for CASB, and for Swig are actually the cloud versions of the classical on-premise components. Because if you have this modern endpoint that is always connected to the internet, normally you would have connected through your castle, do all your protective measures, and it's a secure, clean endpoint for you. If it is an internet-connected endpoint, do you allow them to go to gambling websites on your corporate device? Do you want them to visit explicit content or download malware? Do you want to have them protected? That is what these types of solutions add value to. Where the VPN and ZTNA are literally focusing on your private applications, so that's your intellectual property, file shares, servers you want to connect to, all these kind of things. CASB, Cloud Access Security Broker, is focusing on security on SaaS applications. And Secure Web Gateway, that's literally internet filtering. So if it is a corporate device, I will be sure your company will have some policies what you allow and disallow on corporate devices to be navigated to.
Yeah.
Yep.
So as you see here, right, this is something that is very unique that we offer, and no other vendor in the industry as of today offers this kind of a solution, right? Where you really see traffic right there at the endpoint, rather than, like, again, a lot of cloud vendors say that route everything to me, right? I'll take care of what I need to do from there onwards. Whereas your pure play on-prem vendors historically has been saying that route everything to on-prem and you run your security stack there, right there at the on-prem, right? But what we really consciously chosen as a design choice here is for you to be able to give that experience to your user, you only need to route the relevant components of your, again, traffic to the right components of your solution. If that's not happening, you're actually tramponing or backhauling and effectively impacting your user experience. And again, as I just mentioned, this is going to be a journey, and coexistence with VPN is going to be the key. You have just seen a while back where on the client side we have the same two connections where they'll be able to connect to VPN and ZTNA, and you also have seen the controller where you have both VPN and ZTNA sit together. That way, you get that a unified login experience. Not only that, you also get to have that unified analytics for all the data that you have on your environment. So that's what something that we built in the product, where from a user's perspective, from a device perspective, from like overall who is accessing what applications, the data consolidations happens on the controller, and you will be able to get to see everything together on this single unified single pane of glass view that what we built in the neurons controller. So you'll also can do better forensics. Again, you have like 4 levels of use that is supported in the product today. You can identify from a user's perspective what is his access behavior, and you can also take certain actions based on that. Whereas again, uh, we have drill down views across all these 4 aspects that I'm showing here in the product. So from a devices point of view, we want to really drill down and identify, are there any challenges with any devices in terms of the risk of those devices and all those things. You get to see that as well. So from a network perspective, what happens, you can get to see from this unified analytics and dashboards. And you see here, uh, taking a step further and not only just identifying the risks associated about the conventional parameters that we validate, right? Like whether the device is secure enough, the posture of the device, and all those things. So we have been doing all those things for a while, right? But what we introduced and what we enabled our customers to be able to leverage is this users and entities behavioral analytics. So we not only about giving you access to the user, we constantly monitor and we detect anomalies in access patterns. If there is any anomaly that we take, for example, a user is accessing a specific application and suddenly we know the types of applications that he typically accesses, again through VPN, and suddenly is accessing something that is very new. That is potentially an anomaly for us, right? The second use case probably could be user is downloading a huge amount of data, which generally doesn't do on a daily basis. That again triggers an anomaly for us, and you can take appropriate actions the moment we detect an anomaly. The actions could potentially be, again, actions could potentially be completely quarantining that user from that device, as well as like probably revalidating the user by prompting him for an MFA. Or you can again you can make sure that you're not giving access to that specific user anymore, like unless you do your validations, forensics and whatnot, right? So this happens in real time. You really don't have to monitor anything in the solution. The moment we detect an anomaly, and the policy is written in a such a way that we take appropriate actions immediately right there at that moment itself.
So it's kind of like a bit on the airport. So you come in, you do your check-in, you do your boarding pass, your passport validation, and once you want to get a drink somewhere, you're being checked. You have to either show your passport or your boarding pass for each thing you want to purchase in a store. At least that's my experience in both Schiphol and on the Paris airport. I had to show my boarding pass each and every time. If I was doing a strange thing, and I know some friends of mine who they got picked out of line because they did something strange, the security was not happy with something with the boarding pass. And we detect as well, it's an anomaly. We don't have to pick people out of the line, but it's more like, can you please come with me? That's kind of like how this works.
So as you see here, it is a solution where your VPN and ZTA coexist together. Not only about kind of giving network access through VPN, we also included a lot of things around behavioral analytics. So our goal is to make sure that we improve the security posture of VPN while we enable you to migrate applications from VPN to ZTNA. Again, this is a classic example that I really want to give, right? Many of our customers that we talk to, the kind of applications that they have seen through our visibility dashboard, the moment they enabled it, they were they were pleasantly surprised, or I would probably say they were, in many cases, they really don't know that those many applications are being actually used by their end users. So that kind of really buzzed. I mean, that they really got puzzled, and again they started to take a lot of actions around how do I fine grain my access control policies. That's something that is possible only the moment they get to know what applications users access. And what are the other key differentiators of the solution? The first things, again, as I just mentioned, we were validating a lot of risk and post assessments earlier as well. But what we made sure that we added a lot more signals that we kind of listen on to before giving access to the user, right? Device poster was always there in our product set. But what we added recently is this users identifying the user's behavior and taking appropriate actions based on that. Not only that, as you just see here, Stephen also have talked about that in his session yesterday, where we also validate the risks of all the applications that are run on the endpoint. So we know that if you are running a specific version of an application on your endpoint, and if that application has a known vulnerability, we scrape through the internet, we get to know the risk rating of those applications, and then you can actually take actions based on that. So he's running, for example, if somebody is accessing uh, 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 an SSH application through a putty, and that putty version has some vulnerability into it, right? You can immediately block access from that specific user for that application. That's something that we brought in into the product through our integration with RPVM platform that we have. And we also identify the risks of SaaS applications, your uh, as well as your internet websites, and we appropriately make sure that whether you are allowed to access those things or not is all those decisions are done real time, and you don't have to really bother about am I really making sure that I'm not allowing anything malicious into the devices, or I'm not allowing access to any user who's malicious. So those things are all baked into the product, and it is all dynamic and real time. So as you just see here, the heart of our transformation, as you just see, is our client, because everything that you do during this migration, we should never ever impact the user's experience. So that is whatever we did on our client, it is all unified. So, and it is supported on all the major platforms available there. So the same client connects to Casby, the same client connects to Swig, the same client connects to ZTNA, same client connects to even your NAC offering, as well as your VPN solution. So it is that one single unified client, first of its kind in the industry, where that enables a user to connect to every single solution in the overall SSE space. And finally, what are we really giving to you guys, right? Is really the freedom to evolve at your own schedule, where at every single step there is a concrete value, where from VPN to ZTNA is not going to be a single step migration process. You just have to connect to neurons. You get a lot of visibility to the neurons. Then you can at a per app level start migrating to ZTNA. Plus, for all those power user use cases as well as those server or service initiated use cases, you still need a portion of VPN. That is why coexistence becomes a critical component in the solution. You do have that, as well as at your own pace you can bring in Casby and Swig as well into the deployment, where you are protecting your users internet access as well as SaaS application access as well. So this is the comprehensive security services edge offering that we do have, and at the same time built on the principles that user is right at the center, as well as like the unified client what we have enables them to be able to have with one single client connect to everything that I am showing here. With that, again, these are the key takeaways. Obviously, we know that uh, this is a solution that is going to coexist with VPN, and it'll be like this probably for at least next 10 to 15 years. So we strongly believe in that, and I mean, our customers really attest that fact as well, because they really need to know the applications. They really need to migrate them onto the ZTNA model. Unless they are ready with that, this migration is not going to be a cakewalk.